Hello, my name is Pastor Micah Klaus, and I would like to do a quick review of The Mystical Presence by John Williamson Nevin. He was a theologian of the German Reformed Church, and this book gets named a lot in Reformed circles, especially Reformed and Presbyterian circles that hold to the Calvinistic doctrine of the Lord's table, as sort of a standard work which explains, at least accurately, Calvin's view of the Lord's Supper or the Eucharist, and as opposed to the Roman Catholic view or the Lutheran view. Yet, as I look into this book, you can buy it and you can hear people mention it and maybe even quote it, but there's almost no videos about it. And so I wanted to be of help to those that are here online, on YouTube, wherever, to give just a short summary through video of the mystical presence, and also to propagate then the Calvinistic or the classically Reformed view of the Lord's table. Because Nevin has a very high view of it. Not like many who may today call themselves Presbyterian or Reformed and yet have almost a Baptistic view of the Lord's Supper, where it is a mere memorial or representation of the body and blood of Christ. This is from the Preface, which the Preface was written by Nevin himself, and he says, "As the Eucharist forms the very heart of the whole Christian worship, so it is clear that the entire question of the Church, which all are compelled to acknowledge, the great life problem of the age, centers ultimately in the sacramental question as its own inmost heart and core. Our view of the Lord's Supper must ever condition and rule in the end our view of Christ's person and the conception we form of the Church. It must influence at the same time very materially our whole system of theology, as well as all our ideas of ecclesiastical history." Nevin is saying in the third paragraph of his preface that your view of the Eucharist changes everything. It influences how you see Christ, the Church, theology, and church history. All of those things are so extremely important. And Nevin says how you view the Lord's Supper or the Eucharist, not only is it the heart of our Christian worship, but this sacramental question will then inform our conception of the Church, of the person of Christ, and of ecclesiastical or church history. So a lot is on the line here. And I think Nevin's point here in writing this book, which it's a just over 300-page book, the subtitle is A Vindication of the Reformed or Calvinistic Doctrine of the Holy Eucharist. My book here says it came out in 1846. Nevin was a colleague of Philip Schaff, who wrote the great many volumes on church history and on the creeds of Christendom, a great scholar also of the German Reformed Church. And I think Nevin's point here in writing this book is not to give his opinion, though I believe he aligned with this Calvinistic view of the Lord's Supper or Holy Eucharist. But there's a phrase here in the next page of the preface where he says he wants to vindicate the original Protestant faith. He wants to show what the classical or magisterial reformers believed about the Eucharist. And then he mentions that if the fact of the Incarnation be indeed the principle and source of a new supernatural order of life for humanity itself, the Church, of course, is no abstraction. Mentioning how our view of the Lord's Supper will then influence our conception of the Church, Nevin makes the point that the Incarnation of Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, shows us a order of life for humanity itself, and therefore his church, his bride, is not nebulous, is not something vague and intangible. But since Christ came in the flesh, his church also bears flesh. It's real. The church is real. And what happens at the heart of our worship is the Lord's Supper. And so also the Lord's Supper is not nebulous. It's not something that's merely mental, but it has a, at least in the classical Reformed Protestant view, a high view of the Lord's presence among us. Next in the preface, he basically says it's an insult to say that the external realities of the church are just there to help us along, though some say that. No, he makes the point that the external parts of the church, right, what he's talking about is things like the bread and the wine and the water, and actually meeting with real people who you know to be part of the real, tangible, visible church. These things are not just there as little helps, but they are essential, because the new creation that Christ bought with his blood is real material, real life. The new creation is not invisible heart work alone, but the incarnation again reaffirms the goodness of our body, of earth, of beauty. All of it is from God and for God. And so why is he mentioning this in the preface? I think he's trying to say that when we step back and realize that the church is something real, visible, and tangible, and the incarnation of Jesus Christ reaffirms the goodness of creation, that will make us more prepared to see the Eucharist, or Holy Communion, as something also that is physical, tangible, visible, absolutely essential for Christian worship. Not just the mere remembering of Christ, not just the mental or heart work of remembering Christ, of thinking of Christ, but true bread, true wine, coming in through the senses. All of it is informed by the Scripture, by what Christ did when he incarnated, and the nature of the church itself. And so that's just a quick overview of Nevin's preface. And if you'd like to hear more about this book, like the video or comment, and we will continue.